Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of Man with a Mentor. I am the man, your host, Matthew Barnard, and you may be wondering what a show called Man with a Mentor may be about. And basically, it's about people who discover a passion for what they want to do with their lives, and they practice and work really hard at it, and they succeed, and they're doing what they dreamed of doing. And isn't that sweet? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So today I have Connor Fuhrmann on the show, and I'm going to read a little blurb about you. Trombonist Connor Fuhrmann is a professional musician who frequently performs and teaches at Central State University and holds degrees in music performance from Florida State University and the University of Dayton. And all his information and music links and things can be found at connorfuhrmann.com. Yep. Did I get all that right?
That's right.
All right. All right. So let's start off with you telling me what you're working on now. What's going on with you now?
So my main thing right now is lots of teaching. As you said, I'm teaching at Central State as well as a lot of schools in the South Dayton area. So I'm teaching lessons at Centerville schools, Beaver Creek schools, as well as a couple music stores like That Music Place, McCutcheon Music, and Gym City Music.
All right. So you're a busy guy.
Yeah, piecing it all together.
All right. Well, let's go back because you've told us what you're working on now, but let's go back to when you were a little Connor, and that first introduction to music, or where that seed started to come from. Mm-hmm. Like, how did it happen, and how did you go along the way and nurture it?
Absolutely. So I first started playing trombone when I was in third grade. That's about 3 years sooner than most wind players. Typically, you start in a school band program in sixth grade when band starts. I started in third grade when my parents took me to McCutcheon Music, and they had what you call an instrument petting zoo, just kind of a goofy name, but you get to try out all the instruments, get an idea for how they sound, what you like. And an area trombone player, Richard Beagle, he showed me the trombone initially and fell in love with its sound. Didn't sound awful right off the bat, so that was a good inclination. When I picked up a violin, it was just hoarse and awful, and no one wanted to hear that.
How did you develop as you went along? Were your parents helpful? Are they musicians? How did you balance your schoolwork with other things and music, or did you just concentrate on music and that was it for you? And you said, "I'm doing this, Mom and Dad," or did you think this is a hobby, or how did it all start to come together?
Oh gosh, it really was a journey. I didn't initially start playing trombone with the idea that I would do it professionally, as most people wouldn't, I don't think, but so I was in lessons a few years before school band started. My mom was really the one pushing music on me. She's like, "Connor will play an instrument, and he'll at least go through the school band program." So I knew I had to do that. I wasn't super keen on practicing in the early days, but after a year or two, I came to appreciate the discipline and work ethic involved, and my parents stopped having to tell me to practice every day for 30 minutes to an hour. By the time I was getting in high school, I quickly realized that the skills Rich had taught me had really put me ahead of the game, and I was starting to work on high-level college solos and collegiate kind of repertoire, where most students weren't at that point. And I'm like, okay, I'm good at this. I have the work ethic. Maybe I could actually do this. And then insert high school experiences like the Dayton Phil Youth Orchestra, high school marching band, and playing in a lot of different ensembles, including jazz music and concert band. And all right, by my senior year, I'm like, I need to do music professionally, and I was pretty set on that path.
All right. What did you look for, or what did you not even realize when you had mentors or teachers that they were instilling in you? What was the most effective in terms of like you taking on new information and developing new skills? Like, what's the best way to like teach Connor?
That's a good question. Probably the best way to teach me would be through doing it, experience. I know everyone talks about like on-the-job training versus, like studying in a textbook, but that's really true for musicians especially. You need to practice the things that you preach, and you need to make them habits. So when you hear me play, most of what I'm doing is kind of on autopilot. The only things I'm really thinking about are, interpreting notes on the page and what I want to do with them musically. But as far as where my hand goes and what sound I want to hear, that's just kind of something I've drilled into my head over time.
Right. Was there anyone who kept pointing out like a similar mistake that you were making, and it opened your eyes to be like, I can do this better? And how did you like get over that hump of, sometimes people like they make the same mistake but they can't stop?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. All my private teachers, Rich Beagle, Chad Arno, and John Drew, they've all found a lot of things in my playing that they critiqued and gave me some ways to work on them. I know Rich really worked with me on tone quality, and that was something I kind of like devoted myself to at the time, and ease of lip slurs, so it doesn't sound, really jerky and kind of like you're not smoothly gliding through notes when you play. You just want it to be smooth. And as far as tone quality, those of you who heard trombones play before might have heard kind of a nasty, brassy sound that's not a mellow, soft sound. So,
not with you around, Connor. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, really have to develop different skills depending on what kind of ensemble you're playing in. So when you start out playing in band class, you're amongst several other trombone players, as well as the rest of the brass instruments, woodwinds, percussion, etc. You can kind of hide, and that's how a lot of band students, especially the ones not taking it that seriously, they'll kind of hide behind their peers, and some of them just don't play because they don't want to be heard doing that. But as you practice and develop, you start to develop some independence in your playing, and you'll be more capable of, comfortably playing by yourself. I teach a lot of lessons in the area, and one of the most common things I see with students is they show up, and when I ask them to play something, they don't want to play it alone. They want me to play it beside them, because that's how they've learned how to play, is someone else, one of their peers, playing it next to them, and they hear how it goes and then copy and paste.
Right.
So I'm trying to teach them the independence of, you can figure it out, interpret what's on the page, and you don't need a buddy through that process.
Which do you prefer? Do you prefer to be like kind of one in the many and create that one sound, or like be like, this is Connor, this is my take on this song or standard or whatever? Like, what do you think is more fun for you?
I think for me, I enjoy playing in a group more so. I know, like, if you're a creative musician and like improvising, it's really beneficial to play alone or have an ensemble backing you up while you solo over top. I'm less of the creative side and more of the like, give me the rules and the parameters to work with, and I'll make music out of it. So ensemble playing allows me to fit my role really well, and others can fit their roles, and we'll make something beautiful together.
Because I've talked to some people who say they practice the violin from like 8 to 12, and then they have a break for lunch and do it from 2 to 4 or 5. And I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea that it was like literally a full-time gig and you practiced 6-7 hours a day. Like, what does it look like for you, and what do you need to do to feel like you're doing enough work?
So I suppose, like, especially in music school and when you're in college studying for music, that's probably the time musicians sink their most effort and time into practice. And a lot of your professors are telling you, like, practice is a solitary activity. Go in the practice room early before your classes start. Get the fundamentals, taken care of, and then you can work on your solo repertoire or other things through the rest of the day. I think most of the musicians I know probably don't practice that much. If I had to guess, maybe an hour or two tops a day,
Right.
largely just due to dodging work schedule and other things that they have to do. Most musicians end up teaching in some capacity, so you're obviously not practicing when you're teaching somebody. But for me personally, I shoot for an hour a day minimum if I can, and if I get 2, that's great. It also kind of depends on chop health, and by chops I mean muscles around the mouth and the lips. So maybe you had a really taxing concert the previous night and the lips aren't feeling great that day. I'll reduce my schedule and take it easy just to allow this to recoup. And I've already had several embouchure injuries over the years, so I know the danger of overworking your chops. That happened in college and after.
Now, we talked about how you wanted to be approached from a teacher as when you were a student.
Yes.
Do you still feel like a student? And how do you, what's your style as a teacher? Are you like soft and understanding, or are you like, what do you mean you only practiced 1 hour last week? You're not serious about this. I'm leaving. Like, how do you like marry like motivating people as opposed to like scaring them away?
Yeah, that's a fine balance, especially in music. I personally, as a student, I like the more hardcore approach. Like, tell me what needs to happen and I'll do it, and I won't take offense to it. I've never been someone who really gets bothered by critique. I take it to heart, but don't let it destroy me. With my students, though, I recognize that most of them don't have my same mentality, so I have to, use a softer approach. When I'm coaching marching band, that's another thing I do. I'm managing like 30 plus brass players, and with that size, I'm a little more cut and dry with things and a little less sympathetic, because if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile sometimes. But in a one-on-one lesson setting, I'm pretty soft-spoken and forgiving, and I usually don't, get on them if they didn't practice enough that week. Like, I know people are busy and have other things going on, so yeah.
All right. I'm wondering what your favorite like thing to do is now that you're a professional. Like, do you like playing in Broadway shows? Do you like jazz shows? Do you prefer the teaching or the big band or marching band? Like, what like makes you just feel like I really love doing this? I kind of have to do some of these other things, pay the bills. But like, if you could pick a favorite, like, what would it be?
For me, definitely orchestral playing. So playing in an orchestra with strings and all the instruments. I love that. I think playing low brass is especially cool in an orchestra because you're in the back row and you're laying down you're like the harmonic backbone of the whole group. And there are moments where you sit there for a while and don't play and just admire the musicianship in front of you. And then there are other times where you're the main event and, you're playing Star Wars music or something really bombastic and exciting.
If someone came to you and said, like, I want to learn music, I might want to be a musician one day, what would be like the biggest helpful piece of advice you could give to them? And what would be something that you would say, like, maybe avoid doing these things over here? Like, what would be like a balance of something to do and something not to do?
Oh, yeah. So practice is so important with being a musician, and it should be individual. It should be cut off from distraction. A lot of kids, have their cell phone on the music stand when they're trying to practice, and that's not going to work very well. Yeah. So if it's bad enough, I'd recommend cell phone in a different room completely, and maybe just a clock on the wall to track your time if you do that. But definitely that kind of.
What are those things that go like?
Metronome.
Right.
If
do you use that or no? Or is that
yes.
a piano thing?
No, I think everybody should be using a metronome.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, just because
buy
music.
a metronome out there.
Music doesn't mean anything without time. So there's, a duration to everything. But definitely use a metronome. If it's on your phone, I guess you have an excuse to have your phone with you. But yeah, just on the metronome.
Let me think about like social media in terms of getting your own portfolio of work about yourself and bios about yourself out there. Does it help you like pull in people, or you've established yourself, you can send that link to anybody that has questions about you? Or do you think like, oh my God, this is such a waste of time? Like, how do you balance between being obsessed about it and just not wanting to be bothered with it?
That's a good one. I've been trying to manage my social media intake. I know a lot of people find they spend too much time there, but to be honest, I don't use it a whole lot for music. Most of my networking and making connections with other musicians has been face to face, fortunately enough, and I prefer that to play with someone at a gig and then talk to them afterward, something like that. But initially, especially when I was at the University of Dayton, a lot of the first gigs I got came from Facebook, where someone would contact me. They had heard me play somewhere, or someone gave them my name, and then they didn't have my phone number or email because they didn't have my business card. So they had to go to social media to find me and contact me that way.
Okay. Coming up, like 2 years, 20 years down the road. Yeah. That's always a fun question, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping it's a little bit of a change from the last few years. Since COVID, I really built up my music career. I finished my master's right when COVID happened. Luckily, just finished my master's recital right before the lockdown, so that worked out. But so it's been a lot of networking, establishing connections at school systems and stores. Now that I have like a concrete student base, I teach about 60 lessons a week. So I don't need any more students.
All right. Do you need to go?
So now that I've put this career together, I can back off on some things that I had to do before that I no longer need to. I'd like to gig a little more and continue playing in the area. I play in the Dayton Salsa Project, and that's so much fun.
Sounds fun.
Way different than the typical music I'm playing.
We're going to hear you play something else like right now as we head out of here. And I want to thank you, Connor Fuhrmann, a trombonist. And what's the other instrument that I never know how to spell or say?
Oh, I also play euphonium.
Euphonium. That's it. Look it up. All right. And go to connorfuhrmann.com. That's ConnorFuhrmann.com for all his information. And thanks for listening and watching to Man with a Mentor.